What's up, guys? Welcome back to the Planet Soccer Podcast. Me and Dylan's first time recording in a while. It's been about 10 days, I think, which has felt like a lifetime.
Yeah, I was going to say, probably the longest we've gone without recording, but it feels good to be back.
Yeah. It does, yeah. It's been, end of the quarter. If you work normal jobs like us, especially in like the financial world or, what have you, end of the quarter is always crazy. And me personally, we're going through a move right now and just lots of stuff going on. But we've got an international break, which has been nice because we haven't had, I say we haven't had a lot going on. It's been a pretty wild international break, both on the international side and relating it back to the club side, kind of some things that have happened. So I was thinking about kind of the way to start this. And one kind of phrase that came to my mind is, the international break is like a box of chocolates. You never know what you're going to get. But I thought, screw that. That's not even a good comparison. The international break is like those candies on Harry Potter that either taste like snot or like boogers, or they're like this beautiful fruit. That's what the international break is. Yeah, whatever they're called. You probably know better than me. But
yeah, I'm a nerd.
And that's really what this one was, especially from my perspective. It was more of like the snot flavored candy. But we're talking USMNT international break in this one. The first international camp without Greg Berhalter. It was very interesting to see how the team would play, how they'd line up, and just what would go down. So, Dylan, let you start us off. What were you looking for coming into this international break, and what did you expect, and how do you feel about it kind of coming out of the break?
I was looking for goals, and we kind of saw that. I mean, with a grain of salt, 7 of our 8 goals in 2 games, which, let's be clear, 8 goals in 2 games, I don't care who you're playing, is a solid number to put up, especially when you're a team that struggled to score like we have. But 7 of them were against Granada in a wild game. I know you watched it. I really hope the listeners that are viewers that are fans of USMNT also got to watch it, because it was masterclass. Feel strong because we're playing Granada, but like, we looked good. It's exactly what you expect aside, like what we think the US team can be. It's exactly what you expect when you're playing a side like Granada. A 7-1 win with Pulisic just looking like an absolute wizard. McKinney with a couple of beautiful goals. Pepi finally got on the goal sheet again. Aronson got on the goal sheet. It's exactly what you wanted to see. Overall, from the window as a whole, on the field, I was very excited, obviously, but there were some concerns. I'm starting to get a little restless with the managerial hire. I realize that in normal windows, international windows, maybe we don't worry about it, but we're hosting the World Cup in 3.5, not even less than 3.5 years time right now. So I would have.
When does it start? Like, does it start in June or July?
Yeah.
Do we know?
It should be June, because we're back to that regular schedule, but like it's just a period of time. I really wish we would have gone into this break with a coaching answer. But for not having a coaching answer,
right. I'll step in here and just say slow down and just relax a little bit, Dylan. Just relax. Let's keep in mind that all these teams.
I know we're not Spain, but Spain got an answer.
They did, but is he? Spain didn't look fantastic.
No, I mean, they lost 2-0 to Scotland at Scotland.
Yeah,
and I understand all of that, but as a USMNT fan, it's like, all right, how far are we going to kick this can down the road? Like, I want answers sooner rather than later. I was hoping to have one this window. Obviously, a week before the window, it wasn't answered. I wasn't expecting it to be answered in the window, but that's my only concern at this point, is the fact that we don't have an answer to that coaching solution yet.
I think you'll get an answer this summer. You want to see kind of what, it's kind of the free agency of coaches and players in the summer. I don't know if they're going for anybody that currently has a job, and maybe Ancelotti. Maybe we steal him from Brazil. Fuck it. That'd be wild. But no, I think this summer you'll definitely see. I would look for before. I don't know if it'll be. Hopefully, it would be before the Nations League semifinal, which is what we're talking about today, the Nations League. But I'm definitely not concerned yet. Getting into this episode, we are talking about the Nations League. That's the competition that the U.S. was playing in this international break. We faced Grenada and El Salvador. Grenada at Grenada and El Salvador in Orlando. And, we were talking off air beforehand. Typically, you expect the kind of beating that we put on Grenada, but with the USMNT, I don't always expect that. So it was nice. It was nice to bludgeon them. And then the way we looked doing it and the build up, you mentioned Pulisic. I really liked the way Scally looked on that side with Pulisic. I liked a lot. I liked the setup. Reyna played in the middle. When he came on, I don't think he started, but when he came on, it was refreshing. We'll talk about some debutantes that came in and made their international debut. And overall, I think it was just really positive. Another definitely thing to note is that there were no MLS players in this squad for, I believe, the first time ever is what I saw. The USMNT did not feature an MLS player. So I don't know if it was nobody in the squad or just nobody played, but I definitely saw that all over Twitter, and people complaining about the Euro snobs like us, rejoicing that it was just European talent. But I mean, come on, it's just better talent, and we saw that with whoever came on, whether it was Scally, who's kind of an unknown to many if you don't follow soccer, or whether it was somebody like Taylor Booth, who came in and had a really good performance against El Salvador. I'm going to stop rambling now, and Dylan, let's get into the games, and we'll kind of lump both of them together because they were kind of similar in what we saw style wise, but obviously Grenada was the big fireworks show.
Yeah, I mean, I'll be blatantly honest. I did not get to catch the El Salvador game, but like looking back on it, held them to 0 shots on target. We had 16 shots total. Got to think that was probably a pretty good performance. I did catch most of the I did catch most of the Grenada game though. And as we said, I think the thing for me is where we played Pulisic was kind of exciting. It was not like his normal role at times. He kind of played more of that true number 10, not throughout the whole game.
Very inverted.
But like didn't play that winger position that we've seen him forced into at Chelsea or on those higher European levels, and likely where his career will be on those higher European levels. But seeing him being able to be, I don't know, flexible in his play style to play something that we needed. I personally would have
more expressive. He was able to be more expressive, and I always forget what he can do in tight spaces. Excuse me, on the ball when he's able to do that.
Yeah, I personally long term would rather see Reyna there and Pulisic out wide, just because it's more of what they play day to day. But seeing Pulisic have that flexibility that we haven't necessarily always seen from him because of what he's been asked to do on that club level was super refreshing. I think overall it was a really, really nice performance. It's obviously hard to turn your nose up at a 7-1 victory. I do think at times the play style was really the reason we gave up that one goal. So if you're really trying to nitpick, it's why did we give a goal up to Grenada? But it was a game, you could see the strategy from the outset was let's see what we have moving forward. Let's push forward the whole game. We know we have the ability and the talent to push forward. If we give up a goal, we give up a goal. But let's figure out that final third, because that's one of the real questions we had really in the World Cup. And from that aspect, it was kind of refreshing to see a formula or a mindset that, let's be honest, it's not something I don't think this is a performance we would have seen under Berhalter. I think we would have seen a 3-0 victory under Berhalter. And both have their warrants and both have their positive sides of it. But to me, I think we have all had questions about how much can this team score, and just seeing a manager that lets them run free, lets them push forward, knowing they may give up a goal to Grenada. And at the end of the day, you give up a goal to Grenada, you're still +6 goal differential. I don't love giving up goals to Grenada, but like, hey man, we're still +6 on the goal differential. I'll take it over a +3 on a 3-0 win. So I do think there's a lot of positives to take away. We finally saw some attacking creativity that we didn't see under Triple G. So I do think there was a lot of positives to be taken away from that Grenada match.
Yeah, so I actually misspoke earlier. Miles Robinson was in the side, which I completely forgot about. Whenever he plays with the
He
USMNT,
shouldn't
I
be
do
an
forget that
MLS
yeah,
player, to be
I
fair.
always forget that he does still play for Atlanta, and he looked exceptional against El Salvador. But yeah, so actually in that first game, Reyna did start out on the wing, but he was and Pulisic started in the middle technically because I think Aronson was out on the left on the outside, if I'm remembering correctly. It seemed like Reyna and Pulisic both played off each other a lot in the middle. Ricardo Pepi had two really good games. We'll talk about him a little bit more later. No Tyler Adams in this camp, which he's dealing with an injury. So,
I kind of liked
it's
that
something
though.
you look for. Yeah, it's something you look for missing who was your captain during the World Cup and kind of the, part of that MMA midfield that did make such a splash in the tournament. However, they really didn't miss much of a beat. I think Weston McKennie really stepped into more of a not a mature. He seemed like a more of a mature player for this team this break. I think he showed some ability in tight spaces and some creativity. I would still like to see him run a little bit more, have a little bit higher of a work rate, but um,
But at the same time,
overall,
like, is that ever gonna be him?
no.
Like, and that's
Maybe
where,
if Marsh had stayed at Leeds, maybe if Jesse Marsh had stayed at Leeds and
or
kind of,
maybe if Marsh gets the job, like there is a
yeah,
maybe
maybe,
with it, but like at its core, he is never going to be the run nonstop for 90 minutes that Aronson is. But
yeah,
he found a way to still be extremely productive while not being that guy, and that's not something we had seen under Triple G. Like we just, uh,
hmm
for better or for worse, most of the critics, myself included, on McKennie were he isn't looking like he's putting forth enough effort. And we saw somewhat of that in this break, but he was able to not put forward that work ethic, but still have a vast impact. And I think that's more of the player he is, and more of the player we can expect him to be. And that by no means is that a knock on him. He's still one of the top
right,
5 players from the
on the roster.
U.S. Like he,
Yeah,
so like we have to find a way to work within him because of he has just absurd raw talent and raw ability. Like we have to find ways to utilize that because we're not. I mean, we're not Spain. We're not Germany. We can't force guys to be something they're not at this point. We have to kind of work with what
not
we
right now.
have. And yes, Spain lost to
It's
Scotland
coming, maybe.
2-0. Germany is falling back, but overall, historically we aren't those sides. So you do,
Yeah.
if you're the manager, kind of have to work within what you have and find ways to utilize the players that you have in their best ability. And I think that's an example we saw of McKennie. We didn't see him running like mad like we want him to, but I just don't know if he's that guy. And seeing him flourish in a role that where he isn't asked to be that guy is somewhat encouraging. And I think that can kind of go
hmm
into who our next manager is who's going to take the players as they are and form them into the best overall team.
Yeah, without spending too much more time on this topic, who I was really impressed with work rate wise, especially against El Salvador, because he was in the number 10, kind of the center pressing role, was Gio Reyna. He played a lot more on the high line defensive side than I
Free.
expected him to. Yeah.
Like
Um,
he
so that was promising. And if you play with that, it was like a 4-2-3-1. So you play with that center 10 ish. They're kind of your pressing guy in the middle of the field, and he did relatively well at it from when I was watching. So, moving on, let's talk about Ricardo Pepi, and just the number 9 in general. It's kind of it was the Achilles heel of this past World Cup. Just struggling to score goals up top, and 7 of the US's 8 goals in this cycle came with Ricardo Pepi on the field. He scored, I think, 3 of them. The team it basically only scored 1 when he was not on the field, and he came in within, I think it was 4 minutes, got the go ahead goal, which eventually ended up being the winner against El Salvador. And I said we were going to talk about this at the end, but I just want to bring in the Florian Balogun
the elephant in
rumors
the
right
room.
now, and because it really does seem like it lit that and the World Cup snub. It just seems like it lit a fire under him, or maybe like we just want it to seem like it did. But he performed outstanding. His His headers were obviously on the mark. They found the back of the net. He was in the right positions, and just looked really comfortable and confident. So I liked what I saw out of Pepi. Dylan, go ahead.
I love Pepi. I have hope for Pepi going into the World Cup based off of his World Cup qualifier performances. I was very high on him. I was very stunned he was left out to dry. I still don't think he is that guy to be a starting 11, number 9 in a side that
You're
will
just saying that
actually
because
compete.
because we have this guy waiting in the wings. I think
Not this guy.
it.
The guy. Like I'm not trying to be like hyperbolic here. Like he can be that guy.
No, I'm with you.
Missing.
Yeah, I'm with you.
He's literally all we're missing. I hope every listener tags him. I hope every listener just DMs him. Like
he eats it up. He eats that up too. He loves the recruitment process.
he will be the next piece. I'm going on a limb. Snip this. Mark this right now, so you can put this on TikTok. If Balogun comes to the U.S. men's national team, we win 2 knockout rounds. Now,
so what does that put us in? The semifinals?
not anymore. I'm going based off the new
format.
Oh
yeah. That's right.
It would be an old 1 knockout round. But still,
so
I mean,
a quarterfinal.
As a USMNT fan, like I don't know how much more we can ask than a quarterfinal berth at this point. But he can give us that. Like that is literally all we're missing. We have a very solid backline in 3.5 years. We have a very capable midfield in 3.5 years. And we have 2 very good wingers in 4 years. We're just missing that guy that can score. And we saw that in Qatar. That was what we were missing. And yes, you can say Farmers League, you can say all that, but like it's not like it's some guy that just showed up out of nowhere scoring goals in the Farmers League. He's been in the Arsenal system. Sorry to you. He's been in the Arsenal system, high class system. He isn't a nobody. He hasn't come out of nowhere. He has cachet to him that if he does commit to the U.S. men's national team, I'm going right now, shoot the boot guarantee. I'll drink a beer out of my shoe. If he commits to the U.S. men's national team, we will win. I'll leave it there. At least 1 knockout stage match in the 2026 World Cup. And maybe that's not too far of a limb to go out on, but he is literally what we're missing. And that is no disrespect to Pepi, but we haven't seen him with that prowess in the box that we've seen Balogun. Like it's just not the same level of player when giving service. And we saw how Pulisic likes to play. We like to give service into the box, and maybe that was a triple G thing. Maybe that's something a different manager can change. But right now, based on what I have seen from this team over the past 3 years, he is exactly what we're missing. And I love the Pepi performance. I love that he was involved in that many goals, but without spoiling too much of our pitch to bring him to the USMNT later, like he's what we're missing. And again, I love what Pepi put forward, but we've seen it in semi-meaningful, not fully meaningful games from Pepi before, but we just haven't seen it in those meaningful matches. And he has not kind of floundered. He has floundered in the Bundesliga when he was there to the point he got sent out on loan. And yes, he's played well on loan, but I'm seeing a stronger, more convincing performance from Balogun than I've ever seen from Pepi at this point. And that's really literally the only thing I'm missing. Like I would feel comfortable right now if we had Balogun in this last World Cup that we would have possibly finished top of the group. And if not finished top of the group, at least given Netherlands a fight. And that's just something we clearly all know we did not do.
Yeah, I think if you get Balogun, which I mean, a lot of our listeners, if your family or friends, whatever, they probably don't know who he is. Just go look up Florian Balogun. We'll put it down in the description.
Find a 5-minute highlight tape of him in League One this year and have fun.
I think genuinely, I do think that the U.S. is almost without a doubt one of the 8 most complete teams in the world going into the 2026 World Cup. Complete as in at each level, you have striker Balogun. You've got your other attackers with Reyna, Pulisic, Aronson, Zendejas, who we'll talk about later on, who's going to get a move to Europe here shortly. And then you've got obviously your midfield for the next probably 2 World Cup cycles, the same guys. And then the back line that we might get a Tim Ream on the roster still, we might not.
But
But
do we
certainly
need, like,
there are
I
guys
love him,
that will,
but we
yeah,
don't need him. But that like
right,
that's a
yeah,
wild spot to be in as a USMNT fan. Is like, I love Tim Ream. He's arguably one of the most impressive defenders for the expectations going into this year in the Premier League. But like, if he's not World Cup caliber, I think we're still okay. If he is, that's just gravy. But if he's not, we're
yeah.
still okay. And I think
He
that speaks
he
to
might
depth we
not
haven't
even
had.
he might not have even made the roster if the ripple effects hadn't happened to where the injuries and all of that, yeah, had, basically Miles Robinson was hurt, Chris Richards, and you had some other injuries or some out of form guys maybe who knows what was going on with John Brooks, whatever. But he's a guy that ended up making the roster basically off of the last 2 cycles getting into the qualifying because of injuries, and he looked great. But the US has some young promising center backs, and we won't need him next World Cup cycle, but he could potentially be there. I was on my course saying that even the back line will be like set. You've got depth even at the fullbacks. I think you'll have depth, and then Matt Turner will be kind of in prime goalie age years, which is weird because that's like for goalies it's like 33 to 36 is the prime, it feels like.
He might even still be young by the next World Cup by goal years.
Yeah, seriously. So all that to say, I do think the USMNT will be one of the most complete teams at the North America World Cup 2026 if you get Balogun. Moving on, let's talk about a little bit more about Pulisic, and kind of, I felt like he really got himself back in this cycle. I don't know him and Greg's relationship. I think it was fine, honestly,
Yeah.
kind of from what I read and what I saw. But I think the kind of the atmosphere around him had more of an effect on him than just him and Greg's relationship. And that was clearly far improved in this cycle. And I think it allowed him to do more of what he likes to do and what he wants to do. And Christian Pulisic's a very selfless player. We've seen that. He has raised some hell recently, or his family has, whatever, about
Rightfully.
his play time where he's been playing. But it's been several years that he's put up with it, and he
Yeah.
hasn't. He's been a team player. It's only been recently, as we hinted, that he has started to raise concerns. But he looked great. He was able to play wherever he wanted to in the field. Essentially, he was given free reign to go, and whether it was take the ball out of the back and dribble it through the midfield, or play off a Scally, play inside, play inverted, play outside, swing it in. It was fun to watch Christian, and it felt like he was having fun again.
Because I can't go an episode without mentioning Newcastle. Like, probably 3-4 months ago, I was like, a move for him to Newcastle would be perfect for his career.
Mm-hmm.
With where we're at now, I think I need a move as a USMNT fan. Don't get me wrong. I would, as a Newcastle fan, I would love him at Newcastle, but I almost need him to go lower than Newcastle, and that's no disrespect to him. But we've seen where he develops and where he thrives as the guy. And at Newcastle, he's just flat out not going to be the guy. I need to see him go to this is no means for fit, but like level of club, a Brentford, a Leicester. Like, I need to see him go. Like, I almost want to see Madison go out at Leicester if they stay up, and Pulisic come in, or see him go back to Germany to a.
I was going to say that I want to see him go back to Germany. Honestly,
I would love. I loved him at Dortmund. That's where I fell in love with him. I think Dortmund's above him right now. With respect to USMNT, not that he isn't talented enough to play at Dortmund. I need to see him be that guy like he was in this international break. He was the guy for us in that Granada match,
yeah,
that facilitated everything. I don't want to see him go to a Chelsea, a Dortmund, a possibly Newcastle, where like you're just part of the system. You're just like, with where USMNT is at and where he is at, I need to see him go to a side where he can, like a Gladbach or a Brentford, where like you're asked to do just that little bit more, and he can really develop into that dynamic player for the U.S. Because right now, if he goes to too big of a side, he's more of that system player again, and he gets limited. Like we've seen him be limited by Chelsea, not just at Chelsea, but we've seen the results of that at times with the U.S. side. And I no disrespect to Pulisic. He's one of my favorite USMNT players of all time. It's like him, Altidore, Pepi, or not Pepi, Reyna. Yikes. Those are some of my favorite guys.
I haven't even started drinking yet.
Right. Those are some of my favorite guys I've ever seen. So I mean it in no disrespect to him, but as a U.S. fan, I really want to see him in a spot where he can be that dynamic playmaker. Everything kind of runs through him, and going to too big of a club too soon. We've seen it happen numerous times for U.S. internationals or various internationals where you go too big of a club too soon. It stunts your growth. I would love to see him go to a side where he is that shoulder to lean on. He has that creative playmaker. He inverts to that number 10 at times to facilitate. And because I think that's when he's at his best. And we saw that this window. And I'm not trying to overreact to this international window, international break, but I do think that's where he's his best. So
it's what we do here.
As far as his development, I need him to get out of Chelsea personally and developmentally.
That's the first step. That's the first step. Get out of Chelsea.
Get the heck out of Chelsea and just find a spot where he can be Pulisic, because he's not. He wasn't around under Thomas. He's not going to be long term at Chelsea now. Like he needs to be able to flourish, and the first step is
Did you just call Tuchel Thomas?
Yeah, I did.
I've never heard that before, I don't think.
Well, I don't like saying his last name because I feel like I say it wrong half the time. So I just...
That's fine.
Result to Thomas. But
we're all about mispronunciation here.
We are. Northeast of London. But we just always... Or I just always need to see my USMNT guys be able to flourish in the positions they're best at. And I do think there's a chance he blossomed too soon and got too big of eyes, too big of mindset, and that's nothing against him, because if Chelsea comes calling while you're at Dortmund, how do you say no? No fault to him, but I would really like to see him kind of take a step back in terms of cachet and take a step forward in terms of responsibility on the club level, if his end goal is being the most successful USMNT player he can be. And if it's not, he just wants to win trophies, hard to argue that, because at the end of the day, you're a player. Would you rather a Champions League trophy as a bench guy, or a round of 16 or quarterfinal as a USMNT?
Like, you'd always rather have the Champions League in your locker.
Right. Yeah. So it's tough but as a USMNT fan, I would love to see him take a step back in terms of that cachet and take a step forward in terms of that responsibility.
I'll throw out a scenario for you that I think won't happen but would work. Is he goes and replaces the Christopher Nkunku role at Leipzig. I think
wouldn't hate it. That seems like
Nkunku plays hybrid. Outside inverted. Yeah. I think obviously that won't happen, and it would be a step down for Leipzig, but that's kind of the role.
But they might have to take a step
that Christian. No, they will. They will.
Yeah, you're at the end of the day. No offense, you're Leipzig. Like, you're not going to be able to place Nkunku with an Nkunku. Like, maybe. I mean, he's going to Chelsea, so maybe they do some sort of like swap with money deal. I would love, as a USMNT and as a Pulisic fan, I would love that, because it is he's still playing Champions League football every single season. Like, he's not missing out on Champions League football, and it's a position where he's going to be asked to do more than he has at Dortmund or at Chelsea. So that's a perfect scenario. That's a good shout. I mean, don't get me wrong, I'd love him at Newcastle, but as far as a USMNT perspective, get to Leipzig as quick as you can. Run, don't walk.
Yeah. To finish off this episode, we're going to talk about kind of some of the new faces that we saw real quick. Taylor Booth and I believe it's Alex Zendejas. Yeah, that's right. His first name's Alex. They both became cup tied to the U.S. or cap tied.
Yeah,
to where they played. Yeah, cap tied. Like they're now committed to the U.S., which I think is significant, especially for Zendejas. I think he's a little bit. His ceiling for me is a little bit of a better Aronson.
Yeah.
very similar motors, very similar play styles. And Dejas is in Liga MX right now. And we'll most likely get a move to Europe. He's very young. And I thought Taylor Booth looked fantastic, other than one, like, it reminded me of Adama Traore crosses where he literally booted it into like the 15th row on a cross. It was his first one. You could tell it was like all nerves. He just yeeted that thing. But other than that, I think he looked really good. He was good running at defenders. From what I've read, he's a midfielder by trade, but he's been playing right back. And
Yeah, he's a right back.
Dest,
he's a right
yeah,
back.
Dest.
Let's just be honest. He's a right back. Like, he's just not, like you said, there's just some balls we saw from him, like long term, at least on this team, especially with our midfield. He's a right back. And I think that's where he has the most potential to be successful because of, like, you started to hint at that, I think. Like, I've been a Dest guy for 5 years now. I thought he was like the next Trippier for the USMNT. Like, I've been so high on Dest.
When you get a move to Barcelona, it's
and then your
you want to
fallback
think
is AC Milan. Like,
yeah,
I'm not
seriously.
the only guy that had high hopes for him. Like, it's been pretty clear for a pretty long time he was supposed to be, but like we just, and I'll still defend him to an extent. Like, I do still think there is that potential. I think, again, much like Pulisic to Barcelona, maybe he went too big too soon. But as a USMNT guy,
just stunted with playtime. He's just, his playtime's been completely stunted.
Like, and I get it. Like, it's really hard. Do you want to go play at Nottingham Forest and be a Renan Lodi type? Like, no, I'd much rather go play at Barcelona. Like, I get it, but like, as far as an international development prospect, like, I really wish he would have kind of slowed his role a little bit. But we're getting to the point where if he doesn't get a really positive move that sees a lot of positive playing time and opportunity in the next, well, this summer, I do have questions about that. So for me, Booth is the perfect backup plan to Dest if Dest doesn't pan out like it's seeming he might now.
Let's talk about one other guy, the backup plan, and I don't even think he's the backup plan anymore. And it really just depends on what side he plays on, and that's Joe Scally.
Yeah, he's on the other side.
I mean, the dude, he's been absolutely lights out for Gladbach. What'd you say?
He's on the other side was all I was saying. He's on
the left side.
Yeah. And I think he's a guy that's going to get a Premier League move this summer. Like,
he plays right back for Gladbach, but he's very capable with his left foot also. I think he might be a wrong-footed left back. Yeah. But he's capable of, he's got a good left foot, good right foot. So I think he's 20, maybe even 19. No, he's 20.
He was
just turned 20 in
correct me if I'm wrong. He was left off the World Cup roster, right?
No, he was on it.
He just didn't play.
He played like 4 minutes, I think. And I ran games, something like that. But I mean, the dude is 20, and he's one of those guys. Like, his market value is skyrocketed this year. He's now a $12 million player.
Yeah, and he was what, like four?
When last year he was 4 million. Yeah.
Yeah, before I was gonna say, even before he went to Gladbach, he was probably lower. When he was at New York City, he was probably even lower.
But that's just kind of those guys that are now coming up, the playing in Germany that you just don't realize. You've got, Daryl Dieke, who he was probably the biggest loser out of this USMNT camp. I always forget that he's in the championship and
good.
You just got these guys that are buried in Europe, and it's just a different level of competition, if we're being completely honest, and it's better for development. So overall, very happy with the way this camp turned out. I'm not concerned that we don't have a coach yet. I was impressed with Hudson in his interviews also. I don't think he's going to get the job, obviously, but he said, I'm changing the system. He very clearly changed the system, changed the way we played. Formation, whether it was the formation, the ideology, whatever, everything was different on the field, it seemed like. So that was good to see. Hopefully, whatever coach comes in will be able to take that, run with it, and build upon it. Dylan, you have anything else about this camp before we head out?
Not specifically with this camp, but I'm going to say we have 6 minutes. Let's keep this under 35, 40 minutes total. I'm asking you right now, give me your top 3 coaching hires, realistic, like
Oh Lord.
Let's talk within reason here. Who do you think fits U.S. men's national team? And we can turn this into a TikTok. We probably should because we get better views there. So
Yeah.
mark this, save this,
YouTube
bookmark
short
this.
also. 34 minutes,
All right.
34.
So who do you want?
Okay, so
3 guys.
I'm not going to give you top 3, but I'll give you 3 guys in 3 different categories.
Okay.
As far as like American guy, through and through, bring the hype and knows a lot of these players. Jesse Marsh.
Yep.
I think he's a natural fit.
Yep.
Personality. He's like the no-brainer hire. Exactly.
The easy hire. Other than
yes.
Hudson.
And probably the odds-on favorite, I would say, maybe at this point, just because it's situational. Anyway, my next guy, as far as like kind of not splash hire, but the biggest name would be Thierry Henry. I think that his coaching, record is not suspect, but it leaves a little bit to be desired. There's still some questions. There were, instances surrounding his last stint in Canada, in the MLS, that it was a COVID year. It was weird. He ended up getting sacked, I think. But I don't know. I think it might be interesting, and he's a hard worker, and he would want to prove people wrong and prove that he's still, he's one of the best in the soccer world mentally. So I think it would be interesting, and that might be a pretty high ceiling hire, but also very low floor hire. Third guy, I don't really have a third name. Let me think. Give me your guys first, Dylan. Let me think about this third name.
All right, so I have 3. 2 of the 3 are the same for very different reasons. Jesse, assuming Hudson doesn't move forward as the coach, because after this window, I don't hate it. I saw a brand of football I haven't seen in the U.S., but assuming he doesn't,
his interviews were so great too.
Let's go 3 different guys. I go Jesse's my safe, Thierry is my wild card, and Thierry comes with a caveat of getting Balogun because of, they're very close. Arsenal and not close. But if I can get Balogun, if I get Henry, like that's how convinced. This is crazy because he's had one good season in Ligue 1. But if I can get Balogun, if I get Henry, I'm hiring Henry and just figuring the rest out later. And then my dream hire is probably everybody's dream hire, and it will either go down in flames or we are making a semifinal, and it's Jose Mourinho. That's my 3. Jesse,
I don't want to play his style.
Yeah, well, I know you don't. I know you really don't want to play his style. You got different feelings, but I've always been a Mourinho guy. I'm biased, but those are my 3: Jesse, Thierry, and Jose.
No, yeah, Jose's a good shout. That works.
Jose's the wild card. For sure.
He is the wild card for sure. Man, I guess my third guy, just I like his style, obviously. Pochettino, that's pretty it's not gonna happen. I don't think it will.
Where would you rather him?
Well, it depends on he's not my first candidate at Tottenham.
Well, yeah, you're not.
He's probably my second.
He's turned up. Nagelsmann's turned up his nose at you guys. So you can have Pochettino at one of the 2. Where do you pick?
Probably Tottenham.
That's fair. I'm not. I genuinely was curious. That's fair. I can't fault.
I think Pochettino's a big culture relationship guy. I just don't know if he works for a national team, because you've got 6 weeks out of the year to work with these guys to be face to face with them. He's
about Jose.
He's an excellent club coach. And I think seeing PSG this year, the way they've played, it has skyrocketed his value again, because it clearly was not Pochettino's fault at PSG.
Also wasn't Conte's fault at Tottenham, but we'll cover that later.
It's 50-50. We'll talk about that later tonight, though. All right, guys, thanks for watching. Let us know your thoughts in the comments. Make sure to share, like, subscribe, duet, stitch, and all the rest. We will talk to y'all later. Thanks for watching.